So here we are at Cork Lough, which is about, I guess, maybe 2 kilometres from the campus. It's one of our main study sites for the populations of swans that we've been studying here for in excess of 20 years now. And part of the programme of our work is to mark and band individual birds. And the purpose of that is to build up a record of births, deaths and marriages, if you like, so that we can track populations. And one of the key questions that we're interested in is what's the survival age of these animals and how long they survive. Because linked into some of our studies, which we've been undertaking over a long period of time, is what's their health status, what are the major disease issues, how can we monitor them, and one of the significant issues for these birds is risk of food from humans, in fact. And what you can see in this bag here is how I caught him, was just to lure him close enough with this mixture, and the purpose of that mixture is to just draw the birds close enough, and it gives them food. In the past, people fed these animals bread, and in fact, since 1650, 400 years ago in the city of Cork, people actually fed bread to swans. But recently we've discovered that that gives rise to significant health problems. One, because of the density of birds meant that there was a lot of disease risk that was carried by the bread, and in particular a type of fungus which gave a pink coloration. And secondly, a very significant amount of birds died last summer from Clostridium botulinum caused by the anaerobic conditions in the lake, and therefore the birds ingested the material and died. This is a very nice bird actually. This is not an adult mute swan at all. In fact, it's a bird that's in its third year. They start off as a brown individual and then they get whiter and whiter as they get older. And if you see these little close brown flecks at the top here and the general brown colour of the neck tends to suggest that this bird has actually in its final stage of becoming an adult, if you like, just coming out of the teenage years and coming into an adulthood. It's probably somewhere around 3 years old. They can live up to 25 years old, so that's quite a long time. But we need to find more detail about the survival patterns. Now, what I'm going to do in a moment is just put a band on the left leg, and that band is a unique number. That helps me to track these individual populations. But we just have a general look at the bird first. This time of the year is a very interesting time for these birds because every bird replaces plumage each year. And it looks like this bird doesn't have a wing, doesn't it? See the feathers. There's no long feathers on that at all. And there's nothing wrong with this bird. In fact, this bird is undertaking what's called molt. And every individual bird of every species across the globe molts its plumage annually. And what's interesting about swans is actually they lose their entire flight feathers. So this bird can't fly at all, which is really incredible. So for about 6 weeks it's extremely vulnerable to predation, and that's probably why it was a little difficult to catch them, because they're very conscious of their proximity of predators because they can't fly away. And if we look closely we can see the new feathers coming. These are the pin feathers of new primary and secondary feathers. And if you know the wing of an aircraft, I don't know if you ever noticed when the flaps going up and down, this is the flap for birds. In fact, this little wing here, the alula, the tum, that's responsible for directing the bird in flight. Remember, aircrafts are designing birds, of course. So it's a very nice example of a molting bird. What you'd expect in an adult is big long feathers, and of course there's none here. Okay, a bit of residual pink remaining just here. That is not typical of these birds at all. And this pink coloration is caused by, we believe, a bread fungus. And it looks perfect in this bird in some ways, but it actually can completely destroy the plumage of some individuals when it gets very, very bad. A little bit here as well. So now we've had an overall look at him, I'm going to mark him. I'm going to put a band on his leg with a unique ring on it. Okay. So in order to do that, I get an individually coded one that's got an address on it, the BTO, British Trust Museum, and it's got a London address on it. So anybody who finds this knows exactly where to send the information onto a central database in Europe. And this is going to be number W17057. So it's a little clip. It'll remain with him for the rest of his life, or her life. It looks like a female. We'll have a look at that in a moment. And I'm going to put it on the left leg. You can see they're kind of getting excited. I guess constraining him isn't great, but it doesn't do any harm to them at all. Here we go. So he's got his new identity. So W17057, and it's a juvenile bird. We'll check the sex of it in a moment. Swans, and ducks, unlike most bird species, actually have an intermittent organ that we can determine the sex of it. In other words, a penis in the male. In other species, they don't have it at all, and they just have a fusion of two orifices or a cloaca. Okay, so we'll have a look at that in a moment. Now, let's take one or two other measurements. We just measure the beak from this region, and that is 86.6 millimeters. And then we take the width. That gives us a measure of the size of the bird, and that's 32.7 millimeters. Okay. Now, so the final thing we need to do is just have a look at him underneath and see if it's a male or a female. Looking at the overall bulk of the bird, I would say it's a female. Females are much smaller, so this bird is weighing in at about 9 kilograms or 10 kilograms. Males are a little bit bigger than that, and at about 14 kilograms. So we're just going to turn him over and have a look. This could be a bit messy. So what we have to do is just be careful of yourself there, just to check the bird and just make sure. And this is a female, there's no penis visible, so we know this is a female. Okay, very good condition, so we can now release it and let it back. So you now got your mark, off to go and join your buddies. There you go. Now, perfect, good.